this is where it goes down. Where you hear about the sports all around town. In the country, full of controversy to the highlights. You just not safe in the limelight.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all so much for tuning in for another episode of The Stoop. We got a real special guest joining in with me and my guy Kev today. So, ladies and gentlemen, he's a guy that comes from a big heritage of basketball sports, not only on the collegiate level, but he's been an international basketball star as well, playing overseas, also playing domestically. Part of one of the most underrated draft classes in NBA history, the 2008 draft class, which we'll get into later. He is a D-League All-Star, ladies and gentlemen. D-League also third teamer as well. Big Sixth Man of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming Mr. Patrick Ewing Jr. Mr. Ewing, sir.
How you doing, fellas?
Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us today, man. You're our illustrious guest. We thank you for being a part today. I'm going to let my guy Kev just go on and jump in with the questions today. Go ahead, Kev. Take it away.
Greetings, Pat. Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to speak with you, man. Thanks for coming aboard. I'm going to get to it right now. Thank you. So the first question that I have for you is, at what age did you realize that you were falling in love with basketball? And to follow up with that, at what age did you realize that you had talent to move forward with it?
Honestly, I've been in love with basketball for as long as I can remember. I mean, growing up around it, there was never a time where I felt like I didn't love basketball. Just being around it every day when I'm with my dad, watching it every day, playing it. That's, growing up in the neighborhoods that I lived in, when you were outside, that's what you were doing. You were playing basketball. So for me, it was just always a thing to do. And so literally since day one, I can just remember being 2 years old in McDonough Gymnasium on Georgetown campus playing basketball. Watching my dad work out. I'll mimic that move, trying to be just as much like him as I could. And when I really felt like I had talent was I played organized basketball once when I was like the fifth grade. And when I got to high school, when Georgetown told me out like you could do something playing basketball. And before that, I hadn't really put in work to play basketball. It was just something I did for fun. And once he said that, I mean, it was like something clicked in my head, and I'm good at just letting I can become and see how far I can take this.
Cool. So real quick, let's talk about high school. Can you tell me some of the differences that you noticed between high school basketball, particularly in Georgia and Maryland, and where do you think the best high school talent is as of today?
Man, so I went to a lot of high schools, definitely went to a lot of high schools, but, the difference is in Georgia, to me, you have more of the athletes. We're high-level athletes in Georgia. Guys jump, they can run. Not to say that they don't enough, but you also got to add in the fact that I think that in Maryland, those guys are still they probably have a little more talent. You look at guys like Kevin, Mike Beasley, Nolan Smith, Quinn Cook. These are the guys that were young when I was coming up, and just watching them. The guys definitely there. I think that right now the best basketball. I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say because there's so many good people everywhere. It's not like back in the day where you had New York was the spot, or DC was the spot, or LA was the spot. Just because everyone's playing against everyone now, I feel like you get that. Everyone competes against everyone, so like the top guys can be from anywhere. But you definitely still hotbeds are still New York, DC, or DMV area, LA, Indiana actually is one of the surprise hotbeds. So you get guys from everywhere.
All right. Well, speaking of Indiana, after high school, you signed with Indiana. I'm curious as to know what prompted that choice. Was it the history of the program? Was it something else?
So when I was in high school, early, I had never really thought about college. College just hadn't been a thing in my mind, and my history of college wasn't. I wasn't a historian of collegiate basketball, and so when it came time for me to start getting recruited, there were schools that were on me, the Georgetowns, the Clemson, UGA, Memphis, Texas, Gonzaga. Like schools were on me, but I didn't know the history, so I was trying to take it all as it came in. And so I fast forward. I didn't sign early in college. I mean, in high school, my senior year, I waited to the second signing period in April to sign. And Indiana just happened to be the team that seemed to be coming at me the hardest. It was down to Indiana, Georgetown, Louisville, and Memphis. And I just felt like Indiana gave me an opportunity that the other schools didn't. And I think part of that had to do with my dad. He was coaching at the Wizards at the time. And they had just drafted Jared Jeffries. And so when I was ever around the gym, Jared would talk to me and he'd be like, what does coach tell you? Like, what is coach talking to you about? I'm like, coach is telling me he wants me to play like you played. So I'm like, what was it about the way that you played that allowed you to be in school for 2 years and leave? And that's what my goal was when I was thinking about going to school. I wanted to go to school for 2 years and then go to the draft. And then talking to Jared Jeffries, he was telling me, he's like, Pat, he lets me do everything. I get the ball, I get to push the ball on the break, I get to take good shots, I get to set my teammates up. And I saw myself as a Scottie Pippen-esque type player where I was a facilitator, but I could score if I needed to. And so in talking to Jared, that's really what sold me on Indiana.
Cool.
So, Pat, this is TJ checking back in with you. Absolutely, man. I look at your game and I remember watching you, man. I mean, people don't realize, man, like you can put the ball on the floor, you come down the lane, putting in work onto the basket, dunking on dudes. Your pull-up was mean. You can hit the open shot. I mean, what didn't happen maybe at Indiana, because we're looking at the big transfer, what was kind of going through your mind and some maybe a possible pressure leaving Indiana and you making the switch to going to Georgetown? What happened with that?
So after my freshman year, I wasn't happy. I felt like I should have been playing more. I felt like I was one of the top 3 or 4 guys on the team, but I wasn't playing minutes like a top 3 or 4 guys should be playing. And I wasn't not getting in my teammates, but I just felt like I was being played out of position, and so I wasn't put in a position where I could be successful while I was at Indiana. So coach convinced me to stay for my sophomore year because we had guys coming in where he felt like I could play my more natural position at the 3-4. And then, my sophomore year came in and, I put in a lot of work. I felt like I got better over the summer. And then I got the same results. I didn't get to play that much. I felt like, again, he was playing other guys that I didn't feel like should have been playing ahead of me. So at the end of my sophomore year, I just decided that it was time for me to, if I wanted to be successful and play basketball at the next level, that I couldn't stay there and what I felt like was wasting another year playing in that system and not being as successful as I wanted to be.
Got it. So I hear a lot of guys talk about the system. Is it true that systems can kind of like deteriorate or make sure that your production is fine? Is it all about making sure you're in the right system for your particular game?
Definitely. I mean, honestly, I feel like if you're playing the minutes that you want to or should be playing, I mean, you'll make any system work. I mean, for most people thought that athletes couldn't play in a Princeton system, but that wasn't the case. As shown when I got to Georgetown. I mean, you want to be put in the best position to be successful. And I just felt like at my time at Indiana, I wasn't put in a position where I could be successful, and my team wasn't successful either. I mean, when I was at Indiana, my first year, we finished under 500. In my second year, we finished 1 game over 500, and we didn't make the tournament either year, obviously. And my second year, we only made the NIT. And I wanted to be on a team where we had a chance to win a national championship. My goal wasn't to be going into college, I definitely I had goals for myself, but more importantly, I had goals that were for our team. I wanted to make the tournament. I wanted to win a national championship. I wanted 5 or 6 of our guys on our team to make it to the NBA because we were successful, not one guy making it because he's our star.
Right. Okay. Now, with that being said, everybody knows that you're part of a rich basketball family, and you are also coached by another rich basketball family at Georgetown as well. Tell us about, the both of your family's dynamic in building the history of the program, man. How special is that for you to be a part of that?
It's amazing. Honestly, it's truly amazing to be a part of the Ewing Thompson tradition that we've had. But honestly, it also scared me at one point, too, because when I was transferring from Indiana to Georgetown, I had kind of didn't want to go to Georgetown because John Thompson III was the coach.
Right.
Because I remember having a conversation with him, and I said, Coach, I don't know if I can go to school here or I can commit to you because, our dads went to 3 national championship games.
Right.
Like not Final Fours, not NCAA tournaments, national championship games. And won and lost the other 2 on some stuff that, probably wouldn't happen in most cases.
Right.
So we can't duplicate that. I said, and I've been walking around with the stigma of being my dad's son my whole life. I'm not really trying to chase, being behind his shadow again. And I remember Coach Thompson said, Patrick, if that's the reason that you don't come to Georgetown, you're the stupidest MF I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And I didn't understand what he meant. And I was like, Coach, what do you mean by that? He's like, Georgetown, beyond what we can do on the court, is a great place for you to get an education.
Right.
That's first and foremost. Your education is top notch. Second of all, we're not our dads. We're not trying to go out. Yes, we definitely want to get to national championship games. Yes, we definitely want to win and be successful. But if you're going to not come to this school because you're running from their greatness instead of chasing their greatness, then that's a bigger problem. And I might not even want you here.
Oh, wow.
And when he said that, there's something kind of clicked to me because I was always that guy who I wanted to self-motivate. I was a self-motivator. And I was like, what he just said to me right in that moment gave me motivation. Instead of I'm running away from my dad's greatness, it gave me more of a reason to chase his greatness. And it showed me that he wasn't scared to chase his dad's greatness as well, which allowed me to know I knew that he was going to be there with me in all the battles that we had.
Wonderful. That's great. That's great insight. That brings me to my next point, man, because between 2006 and 2008, man, listen, the program came back to the national scene, great prominence, and you guys had some big tournament runs, and you guys had some great characters and some great ball players on that team, man. Talk about that time, with Coach JT3, man, and you being a part of that, man. What was that like for you guys during that time, man? Because you guys really restored the program again.
It was great. But, a lot of it, it had to do with the guys who came before us as well. Because, even though they weren't as successful as us in our 2006, 2007, 2018, guys like Kevin Braswell, Mike Sweetney, Lee Scruggs, those were guys who I looked up to in Georgetown uniforms. Like, those were the guys who I idolized when I was in high school and watching Georgetown play because, honestly, that was the only team I would watch play when I was in high school. And so when I got there, I remember telling our guys, like, I didn't come here to be a middle-of-the-pack team. I just left Indiana where we were a middle-of-the-pack team. I came here to do stuff. I wanted to put a banner on the wall. Like, I had a teammate when I was at Indiana named A.J. Moye. I don't know if y'all remember him, but he's the one that had the block against Duke when against Carlos Boozer when they went to the championship game. They had 2001 or 2002. I can't remember what year. I think 2002. But he's the one that had the block in that game. And he told me when I was a freshman in Indiana, he said, Patrick, if you go to a school and you don't walk out the gym that last time and you don't have a banner on the wall, then you might as well not have went to the school. And that was something that always run with me. And so I told our guys, I was like, yo, if we leave this gym and we don't have our jerseys or our banners on the wall, why did we come here? And, our guys, we had guys that resonated with, and it clicked. I mean, we just had a great team, and we had, 5 NBA draft picks on our Final Four team. We were the first Georgetown team to win back-to-back regular season Big East championships. And I mean, if you think about the roster that we've had in that time period, for us to be the first to do that, that was special.
Absolutely.
You know, that was something I could always tell. I told my teammates, I was like, guys, that's something I can always hang over my dad's head. Like, I did something here that he didn't do. And that was
special.
important to me. You know, that was important to me to be able to walk with my head held high, no matter where I am on this campus or when we're talking about Georgetown basketball. And so we had, I mean, our 08 senior class was one of the most special classes that Georgetown has had. I mean, if you look at from where they started, you know, Jeff Green he was probably more known locally than he was nationally, but even though he was like a top kid, but you know, our highest rated recruit was Tyler Crawford in that class, and he played the least out of all of us.
Right.
But like John Wallace came out of nowhere and became, you know, the heart and soul of our team. Roy Hibbert, if you saw Roy Hibbert play when he was a sophomore in high school to the time he graduated, you think he's a whole different player. I mean, when I first met Roy could. I mean, I dunked on Roy the first time I ever played him, and I was like, man, that big dude ain't going to Georgetown. And to see his development over the course of the years, even to become a two-time NBA All-Star.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. And then, of course, you know, we have Jeff Green, who's in there, and Jeff Green is just a phenomenal player. I mean, he's still playing it right now for a reason.
Right.
So, you know, just to be able to play with those guys, that class to me was made it worthwhile. I mean, they were really the reason why I decided to go to Georgetown. But then when you bring in guys like Jesse Sapp, and then after that, you know, we start bringing in higher rated recruits like a DeJuan Summers, who should have been a McDonald's All-American.
Absolutely.
Chris Wright, also Freeman McDonald's All-American. You know, it's funny because people say that Georgetown's not a guard school, but almost all of our guards are all league guards. You know, almost always we have a guard that's, I mean, they might not be the Patrick Ewings, the Dikembes, the Mutombos, the Allen Iversons, but all of our guards, from Markel Starks to Chris Wright to Freeman to, you know, Devon DSR, like all of our guards are always all league.
Yep.
You know, James Akinjo was, you know, rookie of the year. Like our guards are always all league.
You nailed the point. And I think DeJuan, man, he's one of the most underrated players that went to Georgetown of all time, in my opinion. He doesn't get a lot of the credit that he deserves, man. There's a lot of guys that just come through the program that are really under the radar and are just really national great guys, man. And that goes to say something else too about being under the radar and things that people don't really value. People argue about top draft classes all the time, man, whether it's 92, 2003, 96, 84, even your father's draft class of 85. But being a part of your draft class, the 2008 draft class, is actually ranked by Fox Sports as the 8th best draft class of all time, man. Talk about some of your draft day highlights, what it was like, maybe preparing the night before, maybe some of your workouts, and being a part of that draft class going to Sacramento. What was that like for you, bro?
I think that if you would have looked at me, even in halfway through the season, my senior year, most people would have probably thought that I wouldn't have got drafted. And for me, it was again motivation. It was a way for me to motivate myself to step my game up to another level.
Right.
And you know, I remember sitting there, you know, the beginning of my senior year, I started the first 10 games, and then Coach came to me halfway through the year, or after 10 games, and said, "Patrick, I think I want to start Austin, and I'm gonna have you be the sixth man." And I was like, "Coach, why? Like, I'm a senior. I'm trying to get drafted at the end of the year. You're gonna start a freshman over me?" And it wasn't like I was playing bad. I was actually playing probably the best basketball I played at the time. And our team was, I think we had only lost one game to Memphis, who was my number one team in the country at the time.
Right.
So I didn't understand why he wanted me to come off the bench. And he told me, he's like, "Pat, you know, I just feel like you bring something special to come off the bench that we're not getting off our bench right now." And, you know, whether it was a load of BS because he just wanted to start Austin, or if it was the truth, you know, it didn't matter, because I took it as, all right, I'm going to be the best sixth man in the country. And I'm gonna show people that even though I'm a sixth man, I'm a starter. It doesn't matter who starts the game, it's who finishes the game. And so I played after, like, you know, the first couple games where I was, you know, kind of messed up in the head about not starting. I came in, I was like, you know what, this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to go out and prove myself. And I played very well for the rest of the year. I mean, I really did, to the point where I don't think I was initially invited to Portland invitation by the end of the year. And I knew that.
Having a little technical difficulty here, going in and out. Can you hear us, Pat? Mic check.
Showcase. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you were in and out for a moment. You mind repeating that, please?
Oh, I said I got invited to Portsmouth, and that's what I needed at the time, because I knew if I got in front of all the scouts in a setting that wasn't me trying to win games per se, but me trying to showcase myself, it was going to be, it would show people what I could do beyond being in my offense at school or my defensive schemes in school. So when I got to Portsmouth, man, I just went out there and I just was trying to do everything. I mean, I was blocking shots, rebounding, assists, scoring. I mean, I literally was out there doing everything. I was all over the floor. So I wanted to prove to people that, oh man, he's not, he only averaged 6 points and, a couple of rebounds a game, but this guy's got something that a lot of these guys don't have, that average 20 a game.
Right.
And his team was successful. So maybe he didn't mind playing the back seat to these other guys because it was for the betterment of the team. So I went from Portsmouth to go into the pre-draft camp, and again, I was like, all right, I went from Portsmouth where it's all seniors to the pre-draft camp where it's all the guys who were potentially going to get drafted, and I did the same thing. I showed out, and
yes, you did.
I felt like I really put myself in a position to get drafted after that. And so I went through, I kind of knew that if I was going to get drafted, my slot was going to be between the late 20s, which is the end of the first round, to the potentially early second round. And then, the teams that were drafting in the early second round also had picks in the late second round. So I was like, all right, so I'm only going to do workouts with, I think it was like 10 teams or something like that. A lot of guys go and do 30 workouts. And you're only doing this for like a month and a half. So I was like, no, I'm going to take my time. And my agent did a good job of picking the teams that I would go to where he thought I had potential to get drafted to. And, I think I did well in my workouts. I think I had one workout with Houston that I actually got sick, so I didn't do. And I kind of knew that. I was like, well, I don't think Houston's going to draft me anyway, because the only pick they had was like the 29th pick. And I didn't feel like they were going to draft me to begin with. But on draft night, I was still kind of nervous because it was me and Roy Hibbert, and we were with our agent, and we were at Big John's house in Maryland, in Virginia, and I was just nervous because I was like, I didn't know if I was going to get drafted or not. And Roy was a champ because Roy knew he was going to get drafted. Roy knew he was going to get drafted in the first round, and so he could have went and went to the draft and sat in the stands. But he decided to stay and kick it with me at the house and watch the draft. So, Roy gets drafted, I think it was 17th to Indiana. And, we're all there happy, celebrating. All right, maybe it's Toronto when he got traded to Indiana. But we're all celebrating happy. And I'm like, all right, cool, Roy got it. Now, it's my turn, hopefully. So we're sitting there watching the draft. And, we get to the first round. All right, man, I didn't get drafted in the first round. And so in my mind immediately goes to, all right, I kind of hope I don't get drafted now, because if you don't get drafted, you can kind of sign with whoever you want.
Yeah.
Right. You have more suitors. That way, in the second round, if you get drafted in the second round, there's no guarantees, and your rights are stuck with that team. So I was like, all right, like in my mind, I was like, all right, I kind of don't want to get drafted now, just so I can pick my team. And in my mind, I just wanted to go play for the Spurs. In my mind, Popovich.
Oh wow.
He does a great job with his young guys. He uses them in the G League and then brings them up. He did a great job with everyone that he had. And I knew their draft pick wasn't until the late, so I was like, all right, well, I'm probably not going to get picked up early. And then so I'm watching the draft, and I'm watching the teams that I had worked out for. And so Sacramento had 2 picks back to back. I think I was drafted 43rd, so they had the 42nd and 43rd pick. And so after the 40th pick, the TV went to commercial break. So I was like, oh man, like I ain't gonna see who gets drafted, right? So, but they show at the bottom line, they show people's names when they get drafted. So the 41st pick comes in, or 42nd pick comes in, and it's Sean, the point guard that played at UVA.
Right.
And I was like, all right, like that's dope. Like that's my homeboy, like Sean Singletary. I was like, yeah, that's dope. Like my man got picked up. So then literally as that happens, my dad calls me. So I'm like, what's up, Dad? What's going on? He's like, congratulations. I'm like, for what? He's like, you got drafted. You got drafted. I was like, no, I didn't. Like, he's like, yes, you did. You just got picked up by Sacramento. And I'm like, Dad, no, I didn't. They just picked up Sean. Like, I didn't get drafted. So as I say that, you know, they come out of commercial break, and you see the new commissioner, the commissioner now, Adam Silver, who was the deputy commissioner back then,
right,
walk on stage and say, you know, with the 43rd pick, the Sacramento Kings select Patrick Ewing Jr. And I just went nuts because even though I didn't want to get drafted, to hear your name at the draft is like every kid's dream. You know what I'm saying? So like, from the business standpoint, I wanted to not get drafted, but from like my ego standpoint and for you know being that guy who, you know, forever you're chasing the dream, to hear them come on and say your name while you're on stage, I mean, there was nothing like it. And then just to be a part of that draft class, I mean, we had, you know, some of the best players ever. I mean, you can't argue. Derrick Rose, if he never gets hurt, is one of the best.
Absolutely.
Russell Westbrook, one of the best. Kevin Love, one of the best. Danilo Gallinari is under the radar, a great player in the NBA right now still. Like, we have great players that came out of that draft, even people who were picked in the second round. And even some of the undrafted players are still playing in the league right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think people don't realize that 08 draft class has an MVP in it, has a world champion in it, and so many other different people, and multiple MVP in it. Like your draft class, like I said, when Fox Sports rated y'all number 8, I actually thought they slighted y'all even still, because just the names and the value in that draft class has still made some great things in NBA history, man.
Oh,
and
for sure.
And that's kudos. I'm sorry.
No, I was like, even a guy like Goran Dragic. Goran Dragic is still a great point guard in the league, and he was drafted 45th in our draft. You know, you get guys that are undrafted, like Timothy Mozgov was in our draft, Anthony Morrow was in our draft.Ose guys didn't even get drafted. Reggie Williams is in our draft. Like, there are so many guys in our draft that even didn't even get drafted that are phenomenal pros.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's also a testament to your hard work and perseverance to even be included in that particular draft class. You were drafted by Sacramento, as we know, and you were later traded on to the Houston Rockets. And then ultimately, as some people may or may not know, you also had some time with the New York Knicks, which we all know your father was a legend in that. And the question I have for you is, since you had the opportunity to play for the New York Knicks very briefly, tell us what it was like the very first time you stepped on the MSG floor as a Knick.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. For me growing up, and, you know, I spent every weekend at the Garden. I spent every weekend at their practice facility. You know, anytime I didn't have school the next day, I was at every Knicks game. You know, I was the kid who had the orange and blue braces because I was a Knicks fan, and everything in my room was orange and blue. So for me to go to that franchise, you know, I couldn't have asked for anything. I remember getting a phone call. I was actually with my family on vacation in the Bahamas when I got the phone call from my agent saying Houston had traded me to New York. And I was just like, yo, this is it. Like, it's like, it almost felt like destiny for real. Like, I felt like it was my calling to be a Knick. And so when you know, I get there and I go to work right away. And at the time, it was a new coach. It was D'Antoni, his first year. And I felt like I couldn't have asked for, at the time, a better coach for my skill set, because he plays up and down pace. You know, first shot that's open, you shoot it. And which for me took a long time, because I was coming from the Princeton where we milking the clock for 30 seconds. So to go from that to the fast pace, I was like, oh, it suits my athleticism, but it's not something I'm used to. And it actually took me a while. I mean, he yelled at me a lot in preseason because I'm like, Pat, you got to take that shot. And I'm like, but coach, Jamal Crawford was more open on the wing, and Jamal Crawford is one of our best players. Pat, you was open, shoot it. And I was like, dang, like I ain't never had a coach since high school tell me that I was open, I need to shoot it, but I like it. You know, but I like it.
That's what's up.
And so when I remember my first time I suited up for a game and I actually played in the Garden was our last preseason game, and we were playing the Nets. And I was kind of bummed for most of the preseason because I felt like I had done a good job in practice and I deserved to play. But for whatever reason, Coach had his rotation. He had his guys that he wanted to play, so he played those guys. So he finally put me in a game, the last preseason game in the Garden, and we're playing the Nets. And we're down 20. Right.
You got that ovation, though.
No, it was great. So I came in the game. And I just made an impact immediately. I ended up scoring 7 points, had a block, a steal, and assist. I threw a behind the back pass to Nate Robinson, who had getting a foul. And we came back from 20, and we were down. I want to say it was one or two with with the ball to end the game. And I just remember sitting there, be like, Coach, please draw this player for me. In my head, I ain't gonna say it out loud because we in the pros. But I just knew I was gonna make it. I ain't care what was happening. If Coach draws this play up for me, we're going to win this game. I don't care. But we had Jamal Crawford on our team, and he drew the play up for Jamal, which every coach would do. You know what I'm saying? But we ended up losing the game. But I remember feeling so good after I left. I was like, all right, I definitely made a statement tonight, and I definitely should be able to make this team.
As you did. Absolutely.
And, it was amazing because, especially because I got a nice dunk that game. I dunked on Brook Lopez.
Yes, you did.
And the crowd just started chanting, Patrick Ewing, and I was like, I haven't heard that chant here in 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was special. It was just really special for me. And even now when I go back to New York and the fans still show me love, anytime I go to the Garden, the people show me love there too. So it's an amazing feeling. It was a great experience.
Nice. So I knew what it was like growing up as a kid in New York and watching your father dominate in the Garden and what that meant to the city. And to see you come in and do something like that and have your opportunity was a beautiful thing. But what I wanted to ask you is, your dad, he had some dope sneakers when he was a kid, when you was younger, and they were everywhere in a variety of colors. But we know Mike is the king of sneakers. So the question that I have for you, although they were friends and were fierce competitors, as a kid, were you conflicted in regards to choice of footwear you put on?
Nah, not at all.
He said nah.
Not at all. Because I knew what it was. My dad only allowed one shoe in the house back then.
Wow.
Nah.
That was it. That was it. But as I got older, and it's crazy because I wasn't a crazy sneakerhead when I was young. I didn't really become a sneakerhead until I was in high school, college, and so I just took whatever shoes I got for free anyway. I didn't care. I didn't care what shoe it was. But
I
remember, so when my dad stopped making his shoes and he signed with Nike, that's when I started wearing more Jordans and the panties and the gloves and the CB4s and all that stuff.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Hey, Kev, let me tell you something. I see this man all season long. That boy got that feet heat nowadays, though. He ain't playing no games. When he pull up in Capitol Run, he got them things on his feet. Let's be clear.
All right.
Clear.
What's up?
Every time.
Absolutely.
Time.
So I got one other question for you, sir. I heard you mention Goran Dragic earlier, and I wanted you to weigh in on something. We have a segment on another show where we're discussing European basketball and the influence on the NBA. And you've had the opportunity to play professionally both here in the United States as well as Greece, Spain, and I believe in Germany. What were some of the biggest differences in style of play between here and overseas, and what adjustments did you have to make to your game in particular to fit in?
Well, to me, the college game is more closely resemblance to the European game than the NBA game. Defensively, there's still a lot more zones. You could sit in the paint more defensively, whereas the NBA game is open. They want you to score a lot, so they allow you to free flow. So for me, I thought that I loved playing in Europe. The part to me that I had to change more was, I think, my mentality, honestly, because coming from where I was playing in the NBA and the G League, we didn't have to practice as much. We didn't have to practice as hard in season because we're playing 3-4 games a week. When you go to Europe, you're playing usually at most 2 games a week. So they want you to practice hard every day, and you're doing 2 practices a day at that, whether it's one practice will be a lift and a light conditioning day or going through the plays, and the second practice would be a more physical, normal practice that you expect when you're in season. And so that to me was probably the biggest change. I remember one of my teammates named David McCray told me, you know, when you go to the next team, make sure you practice hard every day because that's the one knock they keep saying on you. Like, you don't practice hard every day. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I'm trying to get ready for the games. Like, y'all talk about practice, and I'm trying to play. So that was probably the hardest part. But honestly, like you'll see a lot of the bigs are more skilled probably in Europe than the younger bigs are more skilled than the American bigs. The American bigs, you know, we're all trying to dunk and do all the other stuff, and they work on their fundamentals. And that's why, like, I tell people all the time, like, the younger Europeans are probably better than younger Americans just because the younger Europeans, they don't really have to go to, like, they go to, like, sports academies. So, like, half of their day is filled with them working on their game, whereas our guys are in school and they're, you know, actually doing their classwork. Not to say that one is better than the other, but you'll see that a lot of the times the younger Europeans, they might not be as athletic as the young Americans, but they have the skill set is a little bit higher.
Right. Okay. Well, listen, Pat, we got two more questions. We're going over a little bit of time, but we got just two more quick questions. Of course, you play for the legendary Thompson family, and you're a part of the legendary Ewing family. But I had a quick question for you. If I had to pick 5 spots, not including you and your father, what would be the top 5 basketball families of all time in your mind, in your opinion?
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
So I would have to say the Currys right now. They're definitely they're very in there. You know, they got both his sons are in the NBA right now, and Dale was one of the greatest shooters ever.
Right.
The Barry family.
Okay. That's
Brent Barry, Rick Barry. You know, I think they had 3 of the sons in the league at the same time, so they definitely got to be in there.
Okay.
The holidays. Anytime you got 3 brothers in the league right at one time, I mean that's something special. So I would have to put them in there. That's 3.
Okay.
The Thompsons, Klay Thompson, and his pops.
Michael.
Definitely.
Yep.
And Michael, yeah, and then Lil Michael he almost had a shot in the league too. I believe he played in the G League. He might have got a sniff in the league for a little bit too.
Okay.
And the last one, who am I gonna pick last? I'm gonna go with the Lopez's, I guess.
Okay.
Robin, there you go.
Robin and Brooke. You know, Brooke. I believe Brooke was a multi-time All-Star Olympian, and I think Robin has honestly, you know, when everyone was talking about Brooke was the best one forever, I think Robin has solidly made a name for himself in the league.
So
I need a 6 though, because the Morris twins are my boys too, and they I love what they're doing in the league right now.
So the Gasols don't get a nod?
The Gasols don't get a nod, bro.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. You got to. I got to put them. But I don't know who I'm gonna take off though. That's the thing. I mean, somebody got to get kicked off that island for sure, and the Gasols definitely going on. But I don't know who. I mean, world champions, Olympians. You got to add them in there.
Understood. Hey, no, listen, man. It's interchangeable, bro. We just want to toss that at you and just see what your thoughts were. But those are all good picks, man. Even down to your 6th and 7th pick, man. Listen, we thank you for your time, bro. We just want to give you one more quick question. With the Last Dance, a documentary about Chicago out finally this past weekend, just airing on ESPN. As a kid, you mentioned earlier in the interview about you just going to the Garden and remembering how great that dynamic was, man. Can you think about some epic battles that your father and those great Knicks teams had in the 90s with the Bulls that you can remember that are fond memories for you growing up as a kid, bro?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, going to the Knicks Bulls games in the Garden were always the best ones to go to.
Absolutely.
You know, one of my fondest memories of being in the Garden is when the Knicks played the Bulls. I can't remember what year it was, but it was part of the Bulls' second three-peat, and my dad was having a great game, but he had gotten hurt. He got hurt himself at some point in the game, but it actually might have been on this play. So it's the end of the first half. I think we scored. Dennis Rodman goes to throw an inbound pass, and my dad steals it at half court. And he takes one dribble and takes like 45 steps. They don't call it travel, though. They don't call it travel. And he takes off from my perspective, looked like the free throw line.
Oh, wow.
And he's leaning in. I think the ball's in his right hand. He's leaning in, and basically, and like, it almost looked like Dennis Rodman tried to undercut him.
Tried to bridge him.
And my dad still dunked it on him, right? And I remember, like, right at the end, it's right to end the half, and I was like, "Oh, this is dope. Like, that's dope." I'll never forget that. Like, I will never forget that moment, you know, ever. And it was like every battle with them was amazing. And it's funny because, like, another one. I know we're going over the time, but when I was young, I used to be a ball boy for the Knicks too.
Oh wow!
And I remember when I was before one of the games, I hated Scottie Pippen because one day he said he got mad at me because of the way I was passing him the ball. Now, mind you, I was like, you know, I was young. I wasn't, you know, the great passer I am now. But he got mad at me about how I was passing the ball. But in reality, I didn't want to pass him good passes because I didn't want him to be in rhythm with the game.
Oh wow!
That's classic.
Man. Listen, we just want to thank you, man, for being excellent today, man. These are stories that you shared and things that you just probably, I don't know, ever share with other people, probably have, but to share it on our podcast and be a part of that today, man, was epic. Thank you for sharing all your insights, all of the development that happened throughout the course of your career, even post-career now. I know you're involved with the program, all the great things you do. Great father, man. You're just all around great guy, man. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation and being a part of the show today, man. We wish you nothing but best in all future endeavors, man. And thank you so much for being a part of the show today.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me on.
All right, guys. Once again, that was Patrick Ewing Jr. Salute to him. My guy, Kev. Thank y'all so much for being a part of another great episode of The Stoop. Take care.
Some say that it gets no real on the field or the court. We capture the thrillers. Some opinions and all of the truth. Real people talking real sports on The Stoop.